absolute coordinate system, absolute origin, custom coordinate system, custom origin, work coordinate system, work origin, current position, current origin. What are they and why do we care about them? Let's find out. Familiar. You're familiar. So if you don't know by now, before getting into the technicalities of these machines, let's talk about a very simple real-life example. You see, in the real life, we are constantly making up a coordinate system and origin ourselves. Now, this is something that happens unconsciously. That means that you are not actually thinking on what you're doing and how you have to do it. And so the best example for this is our home, or the place where we are spending most of our time. So whenever we have to plan something, so whatever we have to do and wherever we have to go, we are always considering our home as the origin of this imaginary coordinate system inside of which we are moving and planning. And so, say for example, you have to go to some location in your city. So say for example, you have to go to work or you have to go to the gym. You will always consider that you're starting from home, right? And so we are always having our home in the back of our mind as being the origin of the system. And so wherever we have to go, then there will be a different path, and the path is represented by the sequence of streets and intersection that we have to cross in order to reach our final destination. And so in the very same way, a machine will have its own coordinate system and origin. Okay? So now, when we consider a CNC machine, like a 3D printer, a CNC router, or a laser engraver, which is the subject of this video today, the machine will have a limited area inside of which the tool can work. Okay? In our case, is the laser head. The laser head will have a limited area where it can perform the engraving or cutting operation, whatever we set it to do. Okay? So now this area will be limited by the frame physically and ideally by two axes. And so you know that the laser head can move in this direction, which is most often represented as the x-axis, okay, and in this direction, which is normally represented as the y-axis. Now, wherever the beginning of these two axes meet, so wherever the two axes are meeting, or the beginning of the two axes, this will basically represent the origin of this reference system, of this coordinate system, okay? And so when we talk about absolute coordinate system, we are talking about the physical bounded area and system created by the two axes. And so in our case will be the x and the y axis, and ideally for most machine the origin will be where the two axes meet, which is on the bottom left corner over here. Now, before getting any further, let me introduce you to the concept of home. The machine that I'm showing you right now, it's without home, or we could actually shorten up saying homeless. And this machine instead, it's a machine with a home. Now, what is the home? So the home, it's basically a set of sensors or simple micro switches, which are electromechanical devices, which senses the movement. You can see over here I have one, and over here I have another one. So these two micro switches will basically detect when the laser head will move in this direction, and the secondary axis will move in this direction into the primary axis, okay? So in this particular machine, this will be our x-axis, and this will be our y-axis. And so, in a machine with a home, you have the absolute origin, which is physically represented by a precise location in the working area of your machine. In a homeless machine, like this one, the absolute origin will always be represented from wherever the laser head will happen to be at the moment when you power up the machine. Alright, let's now talk about the custom coordinate system and the custom origin. A custom coordinate system and custom origin will be a point within the absolute coordinate system that we choose deliberately to be our new origin. And so, say we move the laser head on this point, okay, and then we can send an input. We can set it through the controlling software or the offline controller if you have one, and we can tell the machine this is now going to be my new 0 position. And so everything that is going to happen to the machine, including the actual engraving and cutting job, will take place starting from that location. Okay, and so this will be valid for both machines, so homeless type and a machine with a home like this one. Now, aside from the absolute and the custom origin, which I think they are pretty straightforward to understand, there will be a bunch of other coordinate system and respective origin. And these, for example, are the work coordinate system and origin. The work origin, or the job origin, as it's called in LightBurn, it basically represents the coordinate system of the project itself. So now, as you can see, I have this project loaded here, and if I select it, this is my entire project, you see that I have this bounding box which encapsulates, which encloses all of the geometries of my project. And so this one will have its own origin, and as you can see, it's located over here. And so this will be my x-axis, and going up we will have the y-axis. And so it is important also to understand where the origin of our work has to be, and accordingly how the coordinate system will look like. Okay, so in this case we are going to have the positive x value going right and the positive y values going upward. Okay. Similarly, we will also have the workpiece origin and coordinate system. And so if we take, for example, a sheet of plywood, okay, now this plywood it's smaller than the area, so will be placed somewhere into the machine. And so the workpiece will also have its own origin. Okay, we can choose to be this corner, we can choose to be this corner, the center of it. We can do whatever we want. This is something that we can approach within the controlling software. Now, let's jump into LightBurn so that I can show you how you can change those settings from there. Alright, here we are in LightBurn, and now I'm going to show you how to work with the different coordinate system and what the differences are. Another thing before to get there that I want you to know, so here in the canvas, which is this central portion of the interface, you see this grid with this black outline. This represents the actual engraving area of your machine. And so this represents the absolute coordinate system of your machine. And the origin, or absolute origin, is represented by this red dot over here on the bottom. Okay? So this is going to be the 0, 0 of your axis. Now, LightBurn works in absolute coordinate system in default, which makes sense because it's basically using the coordinate system of the machine. And so when you're working coordinate system, when you place a project inside of it, or a job, as LightBurn calls it, basically the job is going to happen in the region of the working area as you see it on the screen. Okay, so you will need to place your workpiece, your sheet of plywood or whatever material you want to use in this area of the working area. Okay, so now if I'm going to click on frame, which is going to preview the outline where the project is going to be engraved, you will see the laser head moving in that region. And so this works pretty much the way we expect. So not much to say about this. Everything that is within the engraving area is going to, within this grid, is going to be output. However, if you want to select a specific part, you can basically toggle on this cut selected graphics and you can click on whatever you want, and then if we preview it with the frame button, you can see that it's framing the correct region. And so that's all about absolute coordinate system. Let's now move into user origin or user coordinate system. Now, the user coordinate system, it's a coordinate system that can be programmed. So we can set a point to be the new origin, okay? So say for example, to go over here in the move, under the move tab, we can tell the machine where to go. So we can move to position, say we move to 20, 40, just to be sure that we are not going out of bounds, so beyond the engraving area. So I'll click on go, and then I will click on set origin, okay? And so what happened now here is that, let me jog somewhere. Actually, let me take this jog tool, let me jog somewhere randomly. Now when I click go to origin, this will go back to the origin that we last settled, okay? Not home, but origin. And so now the machine has the origin on where we set them, and the job will basically start from wherever this green dot, green square is located. And so right now our origin is also over here. So if I were to frame it, I will do it. Oh, let me actually toggle back off this one. Let me frame it. So you can see that the laser is not moving like this as it did previously when we were in absolute coordinate system, but right away from here is basically showing you the outline. And we can see this outline if we select everything. As you can see here, it's bounded by these squares all around. So this is our rectangle or bounding line, okay? And so if I add something small, you can see that this is going to move. Now, this user origin is useful to position yourself, for example, with a workpiece. And so right now I have a workpiece which I have aligned with the grid, so it's easier to see what is happening. And so say I want the project to be engraved from the bottom left corner of the workpiece, okay, so that I can maximize the utilization of the workpiece. And so what I can do is I can either jog, you know, and to try to figure out where it is, or if I have a grid, and that's something that I normally suggest, to fix the machine to a board and to let the machine engrave is on grid, so you will have a fixed reference point there. Now basically in this way I can tell the machine where to start. So now I know that my workpiece is located at 70, 40, so I will click on go. And I don't know if the camera is going to render. I'll just click on fire so that I can see if I'm actually on the spot. So I can now set the origin, okay? And so now my origin corresponds to the origin of my workpiece, where I want the origin of the workpiece to be, which is, in this case, it's the bottom left corner. And so here I can frame again, and I'm pretty much good to go. This is actually very simple to use. Now, let me introduce you to the job origin. So, as I said, also the project or the job has its own reference system or coordinate system and its own origin, which in default is on the bottom left corner over here. But say that for ease of positioning and alignment with your workpiece, you need the project, you need the laser head to position on one spot, which is easy, and then the engraving to take place on another direction. And so this is something that you can do with this job origin over here. And so let me show you an example. Let me move to the 240 millimeter in the y-axis and set the origin there. So right now I am basically on the top left corner of my worksheet. So that's where my origin is. However, if I now were to click on frame to preview or to start the project will still try to be engraved going up and right. And so you can clearly see here that I'm going to crash with the frame of the machine. And so what I want to do, I want to take this origin and I want to place it here. And so it is actually very simple here. You can click on this radio button. And so now with this, I can click on frame. Yes, let me toggle this back off. I can click on frame. And as expected, I am where I want it to be. Okay? The same if I add some geometry over here. This will be included in the new bounding box. And so if I click on frame, this will take that new geometry into consideration. All right. Finally, we have the current position or current origin. So the major difference between a user origin and current position is that current position is non-programmable. So there is no button here, as you can see, that can set and memorize or store the coordinate of our current position. And this is the typical way to work with a homeless machine. So with a machine without home, you will oftentimes work in current position because anyway the machine has no clue, no way on where the laser head is located. And so that's how you are going to work. Now let me remove this new geometry over here. And so now what you can do is you can jog around, okay? Now bear in mind that the machine is aware still where it is because I didn't touch the laser head manually, so it still has track of the coordinate system. So let me now jog around, okay? And let me, just to be sure that I'm not going to crash somewhere, click on cut selected graphics and let me click on this one, okay? And now I'm going to frame. Okay, so I can take this one. So as you can see, the behavior is pretty much the same like custom origin, okay, or user origin, but the only difference is that this is non-programmable. But now here is where it becomes interesting, because when you are in current position, the machine doesn't need to know where the laser head is. And so I can now take the laser head and to move it manually to where I want it to be. And for ease, I can toggle on the fire button so that I can see the laser. Alright, so now the machine has no clue where the laser head is located. And so here it's very easy to actually hit the frame. And so you have to be very careful. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to frame it again. I place the laser head dead centered to the bottom left corner of the workpiece. So now I can relocate my job origin back to the bottom left as well. Okay, and I can click on frame. And so as you can see, this is once again working as expected. This is something that I do oftentimes. So when I have some weird workpiece, if I don't have a camera set up which is aligned with the grid, I will basically often switch to current position. I will locate myself where I want to be, then I make sure that my job origin is where it has to be, and then I'm good to go. Now, there will be a couple of things to consider when you're working in current position, absolute coordinates, and user origin. And this is whether or not a job can be replicated. Now, it is often the case where you know, sometimes you have your project might fail during engraving. It can be caused from multiple reasons. A common one could be like, for example, power outage or cable disconnection during the execution of the project if it's not offline. And so there are a whole bunch of things. Now, when you work in absolute coordinate system and user origin, okay, you are pretty much able to recover any job, okay? So in that specific case, you can basically use the preview, and you can see up to where the project was done, okay, pretty much, and then you can start from there, okay? So it's tricky, but you can actually start. When you are in current position, however, because again, as I said, the laser head, the machine doesn't know where the laser head is located. If there is a power outage or anything that will prevent the machine from finishing the project, realigning the project is a nightmare. These are, let's say, the major differences when using current position and when using instead coordinate system which are relative to something known. So that could be the absolute one, so it's using the machine coordinate system, or the custom coordinate system or user coordinate system. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. All right, and that is a coordinate system and origin in your machine. I hope you found my video helpful. If you liked it, click the thumbs up button below. If you have any comment, leave them below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this one. Ciao for now!